This morning I was just thinking about how much value do we put on South Africa as a country? How much is South Africa worth to you? And, I'm not really talking about emotional worth, sentimental worth, how you hold it dear to your heart. I'm talking about in terms of value. How much is it worth to you? Because I'll tell you why I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this in terms of, political parties and political campaigns and stuff like that. And I came to one conclusion that until we get to understand what the value of our country is, then we don't understand what needs to be done to make things change. And I'll start by asking you a question. How do you measure the value of a country, the worth of a country? You measure it by its economic output. And I'm not an accountant. I'm just talking on under general. So you measure the value of a country by the output that its economy actually puts out there. And what is economic output? That is the GDP of the country, right? Gross domestic product. So that's how much every year does your country put out there in terms of products and services, whatever activity that happens within its borders, how much is that worth? So at the moment in South Africa, it's about $400 billion. $400 billion is South Africa's GDP, annual GDP. And in rands, we're talking about 7 trillion rand. So the value of products and services that are happening in South Africa is worth 7 trillion rand. South Africa's value is 7 trillion rand. So ask yourself this question. If you're looking at a 7 trillion rand piece of land named South Africa, and you want to be able to one day, number one, be in charge of it and control it and improve it, the question I'll ask you is, how much are you willing to spend to get in charge or be in charge or get hold of that country? Because I'll give you another example. Well, let me put it in the form of a question. If South Africa is worth 7 trillion rand today, with all the challenges that we face as a country, crime, unemployment, bad policy when it comes to economics, we can all agree that the 7 trillion rand, that is the value of South Africa, is not its full potential. So if South Africa is worth 7 trillion rand today, one of the biggest GDPs in Africa, it's always number one, sometimes it's on and off. But if it's worth 7 trillion rand with all the problems that we have in the country, it means that South Africa has a much bigger potential than 7 trillion rand, meaning that South Africa could easily have a GDP of 15 trillion rand, meaning that people's life can easily be better, 3, 4 times over. People can have better jobs, better income, more jobs, better infrastructure, just a better quality of life. South Africa has that potential because if we are sitting at 7 trillion rand today, and we know this is not the potential of the country as it stands, we can then assume that this 7 trillion rand GDP can be moved up to 15, 20 trillion rand, meaning that people have better jobs, better living conditions. So if you are sitting out there and you have an ambition to want to be a president of this country one day and move South Africa from where it is at 7 trillion rand to 20 trillion rand, meaning that everybody's got a better life, how much will that cost you? Because until we understand that, then we don't understand the value of our country. And now I'm talking about politics. So if you have ambitions to be in politics and run this country as a president of South Africa, how much do you think it will be worth? How much do you think it will take to get hold of this asset and move it forward with good intentions? Okay, what's 10% of 7 trillion? 700 billion. Okay, not many people have 700 billion. Raising 700 billion is going to be a bit impossible. Okay, what's 10% of 700 billion? That's 70 billion. Can you raise 70 billion rand to make sure that you can have the resources that you need to move this country forward? 10% of 70 billion, that's 7 billion. We don't want to go below that. So what I'm asking you is, and I'm challenging you today to say, I think anybody who wants to change the country in 2029 has to come to an understanding that you need to spend 7 billion rand. And this is not a campaign, because South African youth especially, I can tell you now, if you went to young people, they have lost hope. South African youths have lost so much hope in the future that they don't even show up to vote. So campaigning and slogans, it doesn't work anymore. If you want to change this country and run this country one day, it means that you actually need to prepare a government to run this country in 2029. And then if whatever issue that you hold dear in South Africa that you feel that has to be solved to solve these issues that we face as a country, then you spend that money there and do that. My number one issue is crime, unemployment. You've got a high number of unemployed young people and you've got high rates of crime. So what you have to do is you have to spend the money by training these young people who are unemployed into law enforcement, whether they are graduated or finished matric, train them into providing a solution for crime. And you are doing three things. Number one, you give them an opportunity. Number two, you are solving the issue of crime. And at the same time, you are changing the fabric of society. And number three, which is most important, you are creating a system. You are preparing yourself to actually run this country in the future because you are creating a law enforcement system that will actually go and take this country forward. Because I'll ask you another question. If you had to become president of the country today, what would be the first thing you do with the SAPS? What will you do with the EMPD and JMPD and SAPS? I can tell you now, 99% of you guys will tell me now that get rid of it. So when you get rid of that SAPS and EMPD, it means that now you've built a system. You've built a system where you have people who are patriotic, people who are disciplined, and they know that they were part of a solution to bring law and order back in the country. And that becomes the system that you build when you are ready to run the country in 2029. And somebody can come and say, well, 7 billion rand, you're too ambitious. Well, of course it's ambitious because wanting to run a country, it's supposed to be ambitious, almost unrealistic. It's supposed to be ambitious and bold. Because now in South Africa, we are used now to this situation in South Africa where if you want to get into politics, it doesn't take much. You can think about it over the weekend. Starting a political party in South Africa now is just a thing. You can think about it over the weekend and decide, get a couple of guys together, talk to the guy down the road who knows how to do graphics, do a logo for the political party. For some reason, there's gonna be a fist and then a spear, and the map of Africa must be somewhere in the logo for some reason. And then you're done. It's like a template. You just fill in the missing words, and then you start dancing and singing, and then you do some slogans. We will bring jobs. We must industrialize. And South Africans are tired of that. Young people don't listen to that. Let me give you another example about young people. Young people are not watching the Madlanga Commission. They're not. 75% of young people don't even know what's happening politically in the country. They just know there's no water this weekend. What you gonna do, right? They just know there's load shedding. They just know that it's not safe. But they don't get into the meat of why we are where we are. Because young people are so exhausted of being told that things are gonna get better. Let me tell you something. You talk to a young person who graduated, did a 4-year degree, and is at home doing nothing. You talk to a graduate with 6-7 years of MBCHB to become a doctor and is sitting at home. You talk to that person and you come back to me and tell me how you feel. It's heartbreaking. So young people have lost so much hope that anybody who's going to bring a solution, it cannot be singing and slogans. You must just get to work. You must get to work as if you are preparing a new administration. Get to work, spend the money. It's going to be expensive. People raise money for political campaigns, 100 million rand here, 100 million rand there, print 5 million t-shirts. I actually saw this story during the 2024 elections. It was so funny, where people worked out how to benefit from the system. So they go to an EFF party. They know they're going to get an EFF t-shirt and lunch. And the next day they go to a MK party rally. They get the MK party t-shirt. They go to the ANC one. So because they know that every slogan is the same, they're just using the system. There's no better way to spend the weekend than go get a free lunch, get a free t-shirt and sing and go back home. It's a party, right? So political parties are no longer ambitious about running the country and making it a better country. No, it's just a thing. It's just a thing now. It's like music. It's like, and I grew up listening to rap music. I'm from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. When somebody got into rap music, it had to do with their upbringing. This person was raised by a single mother. They were homeless. They were moving from house to house. They went to bed hungry, and then that built their character. And when they start writing their story, that becomes rap music. And then you can relate to the guy. You can feel his pain. And then beyond 2010, what happened is people just had the desire to be a rapper. I want to be a rapper, man. So if now a guy from Bryanston just wants to rap. And then the first thing he's going to talk about is we've got money, we've got girls, we having a party. So there's no substance in that, because that music was meant to come from struggle. It was meant to come from experience. So when that person is writing, they're not acting, they're telling you a story. Hence it was more meaningful back then than the music, especially with rap that you hear now. So the same thing has happened with politics. Starting a political party is like a thing you can talk about over a braai stand. Oh, let's just do it, bro. Listen, man, who can we call? And then you start doing your thing and it becomes a political party. It's supposed to be bold. It's supposed to be expensive. It's supposed to be ambitious. It's supposed to be borderline unrealistic, because it's a big thing. You want to run a country one day. It can't just be a thing. That's why we've got 2,500 political parties on our ballot paper. I don't know how we're going to do it in 2029, because we're probably going to have 10,000 political parties coming in, because it's no longer, it doesn't carry any value anymore. But wanting to run your country one day, it is supposed to be like a huge responsibility that comes with a huge budget, and it's not cheap because it's deep. So that's all I wanted to share today, to say that how much value do you put in your country? How much is South Africa worth to you? And if you want to one day be part of running this country, you have to understand that it cannot be done over the weekend. It is something that has to be done with an understanding that this is a country, it's a piece of land called South Africa, and it's worth this much. And for you to get a hold of it and make it better, you have to spend a lot of money, because you have put a lot of value on it. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day. And the other thing that I wanted to discuss was that from Monday on this channel, we're going to have a very serious structure. So we'll have a day where we do updates on the ICJ case. There'll be a day where we do updates on the Khatfor Patrol Unit. There'll be a day where I want to introduce something that has to do with crime in our country. So you'll be able to send a video or your stories about your experience when it comes to crime, whether it's hijackings or breakings, anything that is not comfortable, but I think we have to talk about it, where you can tell us what happened to you, how did you survive it, and where's the case at the moment, so that we can, because the more we talk about it, the more we can understand how serious the situation is, and I know it's going to be emotional, but I believe we have to talk about it. So we'll choose a day where we talk about that. One day of the week we'll talk about that, and there'll be a day where I dedicate it to comments, where we just go through the comments, because some of the comments are so insightful that it's important that we discuss them. I get a lot of comments where someone says, "Love you, Mike. We support you. Keep going." We don't have to discuss those. I just say thank you, I appreciate it. But there are comments where we have to go through it and almost create like a forum around it. And so I will give that probably on Monday, to say on this day we'll give updates about this, on this day we'll do this, so that every time you tune into the channel, you know exactly what's going to happen. Anyway, enjoy your weekend. Until then, stay safe.